Welcome watching this video. I'm Alan. Today I would like to introduce tax-deductible expenses for Hong Kong company. Expenses that are incurred for producing profits chargeable to Hong Kong profits tax and they are not capital in nature are generally tax-deductible. In addition, special tax allowances are available for certain capital expenditures. On the other hand, there are special rules for deduction of certain expenses. Accounting treatments are usually followed in tax computation to determine the assessable profits, except where there's an explicit rule in the Inland Revenue Orders. Accrued expenses recognized in the profit or loss accounts in accordance with accounting principles are usually deductible if they are incurred for producing profits chargeable to Hong Kong profits tax and are not capital in nature. Expenses item for which a tax adjustment is necessary in determining the amount of taxable profits from the accounting profits include tax depreciation allowance against accounting depreciation, expenses that are capital in nature, general provisions that are not deductible, and non-deductible interest expenses on borrowing used to finance non-income producing assets. Let's take a look at Hong Kong profit tax treatment of some common expenses. Accounting depreciation is not allowed for tax purpose. Instead, tax depreciation allowance are available for capital expenditure incurred on the construction of buildings or structures and in the provision of machinery and plant for trade or business purpose. For industrial buildings and structures, an initial allowance of 20% in addition to annual allowance of 4% of the cost of construction or cost of the purchase from a developer is granted for an industrial building or structure occupied for the purpose of acquiring foreign trade. For other buildings and structures, that is commercial buildings and structures, an annual allowance of 4% of the capital expenditure incurred on the construction is applicable. Regarding to the plant and machinery, an initial allowance of 60% of the capital expenditure on plant and machinery is given for the year of assessment during the basis period in which the capital expenditure is incurred. An annual allowance is also given for the depreciation at the three prescribed rates on the reducing value of each of the three depreciation rate pools. The three prescribed rates are 10%, 20%, and 30%. And the reducing value of each of the three depreciation rate pools is original cost less initial and annual allowance and sales proceeds. Bad debts. In general, a bad or doubtful debt incurred in any trade, business, or professions proved to the satisfaction of the Inland Revenue Department to have become bad during the basis period for a year of assessment is deductible. The deduction is limited to the debts that were included as a trading receipt in ascertaining the taxpayer's assessable profits. If any bad or doubtful debt that has previously been allowed as a deduction is recovered, it will be treated as taxable profits of the basis period in which it is recovered. Charitable donations. A deduction is allowed for cash donations to approved charities made in the basis period for a year of assessment if the aggregate of such donation is not less than Hong Kong dollar 100. The deduction is limited to 35% of the assessable profits of the year of assessment. In other words, no deduction is allowed if the company was loss-making in that year of assessment and the deduction cannot be carried forward. Penalties. Finance penalties are generally not deductible. Taxes. Taxes paid on profit are generally not deductible for the purpose of calculating the assessable profits. A foreign tax that is not calculated by reference to profits, example is VAT, may be considered as deductible under the general deduction provisions. Losses. Operating losses incurred in an accounting year can be carried forward indefinitely to offset future profits of the business. However, operating losses can be carried backward. Besides, capital losses are not tax deductible. This is the end of this video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.